Hello, everyone, and welcome to race number 2, HRL MT Grand Finals. Oh, there we go. There's the track. There's the track. Dustcutter Nationals. So this one was forged by Detail for the season, and very early on, we decided to put this one in for the Grand Final, and it had to be very early on because I think this thing was forged like if not before the season, like the first couple weeks. Like this has been around for a while, and yeah, just like very quickly made the decision to throw this thing in for the grand final for multiple reasons. One, just the fact that it was original track cooked up for the season. That was a factor, and then just the cool factor of this track is we're going through the gate here, being made out of bounds, just a different type of thing, and the track itself is very very neat as well. For a Reach MX, I actually think it's really well done. And the start is absolutely insane. Look at the start. I mean, this downhill is intimidating, and it's a very good tone setter for how crazy the track is that you're about to battle on. So very very fitting opening for this track as well. Do a time start on this one for the gate, so we're kind of waiting on this one. Even the shot here downhill with the waterfall in the background, very very cool. But green flag. And it looks like iPod gets a really nice jump off the gate, and we'll get the whole shot. It was Soul and Luke close behind. And they're going to have big runs in the downhill. Downhill, very, very spooky. This downhill whoop section can be brutal. Oh, a little bit of contact right there. Soul going for the lead and rolls it and rolls it. And then Slaunch lands an iPod. Oh, this is brutal. We're going to have to take a look at a replay here. And oh yeah, I think so. The reason why we kind of why I'm kind of scrolling through this for a bit is I learned something while trying to do this replay. I think it has to do with the fact that you're technically not supposed to be here where this track is. Like you're technically not supposed to be here. Like technically, we die, but we have the invincibility with that out of bounds thing at first. So like I'm able to switch. Like before that timer runs out, I'm able to switch POVs, and then after that timer runs out, I'm locked into like right there. I was locked on Camby. Like I promise you, I was trying to switch POVs, and it was impossible. So, yeah, apparently that's a thing. Once that out of bounds timer goes, we're just locked on whoever's POV. So I wanted to show like different POVs, but after that, I was like, all right, well, whatever. Kind of screwed that over. Yeah, looking at the downhill. And Soul carries a lot of momentum, but he's just very rogue, and he was about to go down. I think having iPod there, funnily enough, it sucked for iPod, but I think it actually saved Soul. I think he was going to go down or off the berm if iPod wasn't there. But yeah, Soul, just not enough practice on the track, which is unfortunate because there was time. This track's been available for a long time, and it's the grand final. And I won't rag on him too hard, but next time, please, 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 at least get some sight laps. But yeah, not a roller there, and that really cheeses iPod. And then Slaunch lands an iPod because what the hell is Slaunch supposed to do? He's not expecting someone to be rolling there, and he's in the air. Like he's not. There's no correcting his action at that point. It's just completely chalked. And lands on iPod, and it's just a really really brutal start for iPod, who is he tends to be better on the reach stuff, tends to enjoy it more, and tends to race better on it too. And this was going to be a really, really good start for him. And now instead he's in last place. So I really feel for him on this one. Yeah, I mean, that really sucks. I mean, I'd be upset too. So yeah, sucks for iPod. Still nice to see him in the grand final and to qualify for it and battling here. But yeah, that's absolutely brutal. And he was pretty frustrated with it. And again, fair enough. I get it. I'd be pretty frustrated there too. So yeah, unfortunate start to this race, but it is what it is, and gonna keep trucking here. And yeah, the toughest part of this track navigating is that downhill. It's the most spooky part. I feel like you can run it like 100 times and you might get cheesed. You might be able to run it clean like 90 times, and it's not a statement against the track. I think Detail did a great job at this track, and I do really enjoy the track, really enjoy running it, but I feel like the rest of the track you can run really, 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 really consistently. The one section where sometimes you can have some instances that feel kind of like iffy is that downhill. So it's the section that you're gonna want to keep your eyes on throughout this race. Ooh, get child Roman. It's where a lot of the cheese is gonna go down. A lot of the incidents are going to be in that section. So definitely keep an eye out there. But yeah, I just want to stress because it's not all the tracks. I had to show a slow mo, so yeah, get fucked, Roman, get fucked. I even hit the slow mo for that one, so I'm sure he'll be happy about that, seeing that in the replay, and he should be. He got absolutely chowed right there, so yeah, get wrecked. Um, but yeah, so not saying anything specific about that section or this track because all the tracks in the grand finals definitely had some gopher action. If anything, the best track in terms of consistency is the next one coming up, in my opinion. Claystone Compound, the hog track, and you see multiple issues right there. Soul does go over the berm that time. Roman had like way too much momentum. He goes around. The cheesing afterwards too. That's unfortunate for Roman. Wow, that sucks. Especially after he just got off to a really good start in this grand final, and now iPod going. Oh man, just issues all around. But yeah, it's like I explained in the last one. Like it's just the nature of it. It's just the nature of these tracks. There's going to be sections that are a little more rogue, and yeah, there's going to be some inconsistencies there. But it's kind of just is what it is. I still really love this track. I'd still race it again. But yeah, that one's definitely the death section for this one. All the tracks in the grand finals had some element to that. Like I said, I think the next one that we go to probably had it the least, but even then there was a few bumps that people discovered during the race. But that's kind of the nature of terrain, right? Like when you're doing GPs, and we're doing like the clean ones that we tend to forge. There's not going to be as much stuff like that, and the downside of doing more experimental and more risky stuff like this. Oh, there's such. Yeah, going absolutely down. Yep, that can happen. That sucks. But the downside of it is that there is going to be more stuff like that, right? There's going to be more stuff where it'll feel fine in practice, and then you discover ways to wreck during the race, or you discover a new bump that you didn't like. You know what I mean? There's going to be more stuff like that with these types of tracks, and it's just kind of one of those pro-con type things because on the plus side, with doing this series and getting to make these types of tracks, we get to do some really cool shit, right? Like this track is fucking awesome. Like just in design and the way it runs and shit, it is very cool. All the tracks in this grand final are very cool, in their own way. On the downside, you have instances like that, and you have the gophers. Like we talked about this in the preview show too. But yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. It's just kind of a product of racing on Halo. But I'm still glad we did this series though, because we still got to do some really cool races and make some really really cool tracks. And even with the cheesing and the Halo BS involved, I still think it was worth it because these are just like really cool projects and really fun to race on, and yeah, like I don't know, that type of stuff can suck at times, but I also think that being too safe and always making the same type of clean track can be boring, and that can be frustrating in its own way. And I'd rather have more stuff like this and have it be experimental and have it be risky and with the occasional hiccup and section that could be kind of rogue, and be exciting in that way, and have more excitement in terms of like racing the track and what types of tracks we're making, versus it being like too clean and too predictable, with stuff always being flat and always being like made at perfect angles. And I don't know, basically this is getting into a whole rant that I've gotten into before, but basically what I'm getting at is like these tracks have character, and it can bite you, and it can be rough, and sometimes it can be things that you just don't quite understand, whether it's a bump that you didn't see at first, or sometimes some shit's really just inconsistent. Like for example, like one I would say for sure, again, I'm not convinced on this downhill. I think there are some times where it just like kind of conks you. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it's a bad line, I don't know. But I don't know, I feel like most people would probably agree with that. But one, maybe there's some differences in opinion there. One I think people can agree on is the MX that we raced, the last Halo 4 one that we did, definitely had some landings that were I feel like you could take those pretty similarly, pretty consistently, and you would just die sometimes. I think we can all agree on that. So like, I don't know, there's tracks like that, that had sections like that throughout the whole season, and yeah, it just kind of is what it is. You're gonna have spots like that when you do shit like this, But again, I'd rather have that and have that character and have the, unfortunate couple instances for making some really awesome shit versus just making the same old stuff. Not to diss tracks that we've tended to race for a long time. We've obviously done a lot of stuff like that as well, where it's really perfectly made and angling stuff, a certain way, making sure you're on that rotation snap, like you know what I mean. Like we've definitely done shit like that too. But I guess what this is all getting down to is that it's been like fucking 15, not quite 15 yet, but it's been we're approaching like 15 years of this shit. I don't mind a rogue track with a risky section at this point, just to mix things up and give us a reason to show up, if that makes sense. Yeah, if that makes sense. Like I'm sure some people could race those same types of tracks for another 5, but I definitely couldn't. I don't know. I'm already kind of burnt out on that. But there you go. There's your Luch tangent for the race. I don't know. That's something I've talked about for a long time. It's one of those things that it sucks that these types of projects will give you stuff like that and give you instances like that. But I think it's worth it in the end. Is essentially what we're getting down to. I think it's worth it in the end for making something really fucking cool like this track is. So yeah, there you go. There's the tangent. Went through all the aspects of that one to eventually get there. Roman's on a bit of a comeback here, by the way. I mean, that was a rough, really rough part of the race where he lost like all his track position. But look at this, he's gained like damn near all of it back. He's behind Camby right now, and this is for 4th place, which realistically that's 2nd and 3rd right there. And then first place, we just barely saw Luke over to the side. So realistically, I mean, it's a great comeback for Roman. He's probably not going to get much more than this though. But yeah, if he could get this position on Camby, I mean, that would be a massive comeback for him. He could really use that because with how strong his first race was, he still has a very good opportunity at having a strong grand final and really showing out here, which he definitely wants to do because, yeah, he had a good. Well, not good is an understatement. He had a great short track showdown, and he had a decent grand final in it. But this season, he's had kind of a rough show of it. But he's had the momentum as of late, and I think this grand final is a good opportunity for Roman to really show out and show that he still has that speed and that potential that he showed in the short track showdown. And maybe it wasn't there for the whole season this season, but he's still got it, and he can definitely still get good finishes and get wins. I mean, obviously he didn't get the win, but he got 2nd, so he got a good, very solid finish in the first race with a very stacked field, and not the worst starting position, but not the greatest. So like that was a very good performance already. And then here, I think it shows some real grit out of him to have that rough instance, to lose all that track position, have to go get it back, and he's actually done it. He got by Camby right there. He's regained all that track position, and now he's back on track for a solid 4th place finish, most likely. So yeah, that's just a real good showing from Roman, and that'll really keep his points in a great position going into race 3 for sure. Solange, on the other hand, it's a rough start for him on the night. I think he was obviously hoping for this race to go well. There it is, and it's like that's a tough one. I don't know, if he particularly like got too sideways, or if he didn't have enough speed. Maybe it was a combination of both, or maybe he just got a little unlucky. I don't know. But either way, goes down there. Unfortunate. Obviously not what he was hoping for. This would be a track that he had circled, right? Like Solange really likes the MXs. He's been really competitive. He has a win in MX on the season, a very good one at that too. He's had a lot of pace at a lot of these tracks, and this is really unfortunate for him because again, this is like one that he's going to have circled on the night, and finishing where he currently is. He's actually like currently in last at this moment, which is really brutal. It's definitely not what he was hoping for. So, hoping he can get a position or two back here at the end if he can, but this is a very, very, very sad start to the night for Solange. On the bright side, if he does finish that far back, he will get a really nice starting position for race 3. Maybe he can start a back half of the night comeback. Maybe he could take advantage of that starting position in race 3, and then you go to a terrain oval in race 4 where anything can happen, and he's been a lot better at the terrain ovals as of late. He was really rough on them to start with, and then he had he got a win. He got a win, and it kind of opened the floodgates in the middle of last season. Ever since that point, he's actually been very solid on them. There's been a couple bad finishes here or there, but I mean, everybody kind of has that on those tracks at some point. But his overall consistency and his win potential, podium potential is just like drastically increased after getting that one good finish. Sometimes that's all it takes. So yeah, if he has that starting position, maybe he can start a back half of the night comeback and get a really nice set of points there. That being said, I'm sure he wants to hunt down another grand final championship at some point. I don't think it's going to be this one. This rough of a start. He can definitely recover for like a top 5 points finish, maybe a podium if something really goes wrong for one of those drivers. But yeah, as far as like competing for the actual grand final championship as well, or itself, like this rough of a start, these first 2 races, it's probably not going to cut it. So that's really unfortunate for Slonch because I'm sure he's going to want to get another one at some point. I think he's capable of doing it too. I think he will be. He's been competitive in a lot of these recent ones, like up until a lot of the time, up until the last race or even going in the last race, like he's been competitive and he's right there. So, yeah, I think he's going to do it at some point. But it's unfortunate to say this early in the night that it's just sadly probably not going to be this one. But hopefully he can at least get some good finishes out of those last couple races. But we'll have other stuff in the future. He'll have more opportunities at it for sure, for sure. I mean, hell, if we did a terrain oval season, like who knows how a season on that would go, right? Like, even if we do like mini series type stuff, that's something that we've discussed the possibility of doing. I think that helps out somebody like a Slaunch, like a Roman, a lot because I think what we've realized and what we've noticed, even like a Soul, I'd throw his name out there for that, is that like over the course of a long season with the mulligans and stuff like that, and just like the overall consistency and the very large sample size, is that Luke and Detail have both been really, really strong over the course of these long seasons. But, if we do the mini series type stuff and you see kind of a preview of that with like the division titles that we've been doing, because there's less races there. If we do stuff like that, that could really spice up the points because there's not going to be as much, maybe there'd be like one mulligan. So that would be not nearly a factor, that would change things a lot. Like a couple bad finishes like that would really hurt. Having a hot streak like Slaunch is capable of doing and does very often, especially like early in seasons. Oh no, we have spice. That could really like lead to something like a championship. So if we ever do stuff like that, it'd be interesting to see how the table shift. We'd probably see more competition for those championships, which would be welcome. And yeah, Luke gets bit by the whoops section right here at the very end. We're going to go to the white flag this time by, and Soul unfortunately made a mistake at the same time, or had unfortunate at the same time. I couldn't really tell what happened. But yeah, so Soul had a chance here to spice it up, make it a 3-way battle. I'm not quite sure if that's going to be the case now. He's a little far back. But now here we go. And in the white flag lap, it looked like it was a wrapped up race, but this track can just absolutely bite you when you're least expecting it. And there it happens. It was a massive gap, but literally just like one crash just lost so much time. And now here it is, Detail going for the move on the last lap. Could this be it? This would be a big upset for how not for, I mean, obviously he made the track, he has pace, but in terms of how this race has gone, it would be a big upset. So far they keep it clean. It's spooky through this section. Oh, and that's going to be a rough land and just flips around hard. Yeah, I don't know. I think that right side of the whoops is maybe just a little more spooky. But I mean, they're side by side, so nowhere else for Luke to go. He just has to be on the right side. That's kind of what it looked like right there. Maybe it's a little bit harder to keep it straight on the right side. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But either way, I mean, that just really sucks. That just really sucks. And, not only going to lose the lead, but going to lose second as well. So yeah, just really, really brutal there at the end. But I mean, these tracks, we've had it happen before. That happened to Luke even on Sebring earlier in the season where Detail took a win there. But there was one gopher flip that I think I saw Luke was the only person to find it. And it probably would have been a win without that. But Detail going to take the win here. Soul second, Luke third. But yeah, Detail's had races end like that too. We've had plenty instances of that throughout the season. It's just always a factor on these tracks, these wipeouts. Yeah, it's just kind of how it goes. Roman fourth. and iPod. Pretty decent recovery for iPod, I gotta say, to get a top 5 out of that. And then Camby, Slaunch, and Hunter will round out the field. So exciting end to the race for a race that was, singled out. But yeah, the Cheese came in clutch to make it for an interesting ending. That's a brutal ending. It's kind of the opposite, but kind of similar to what happened to Detail a couple weeks ago on the MX where Luke ended up winning. So, tables turned, roles reversed, but very similar, like tough situations for the drivers there. But congrats to Detail on the win. Take the MX division title as well. Roll into race 3.